like a diamond. It's not just the food we put in our body, but it's food of thought and food for the soul. So I help navigate those elements and bring it more to awareness for people.
I will tell you, I think so many other cultures around the world do approach food as something for the soul, to nourish the soul, to nourish the body, to take time with their food. And there is no doubt about it. So many of us in America don't approach food that way. It's driving through, picking up your burger, eating it in the car, not even thinking about it. We all know it's filled with toxins, and then we end up getting addicted to it and wanting more of it and more of it. Breaking that cycle is really, really tough. Can you help us decode that? Help us sort of become at one with food, at peace with food. Would you do that?
That's just powerful what you said. First off, that's so true. And secondly, when you think about food, yes, around the world it's completely ceremonial, but it's also very ceremonial on many levels here in the States. We use food in such a bountiful way for weddings. We use it at food as a coming together for funerals. Really, food is coming together to break bread. I mean, food is such an essential part to our selves, our community, our essence, and yet our sacred body, if you call it body temple, as I do, is trying to get our attention on like how to live for longevity and how to come back to nature and how to come back to just the basics. When I was growing up, my mother would say, and I thought it was crazy, it was kind of the cornerstone of what I now have a life career, but she would say, more than three, leave it be. And I just thought that was crazy. But she was talking about ingredients. Like if there's more than three on the label, it's not going on our table. She literally
Wow.
could raise me saying, less is best. Like go to Mother Nature in the garden, from the tree, from the bushes, not those inner aisles in the grocery store where you have a ton of names of things you can't pronounce and don't know what they're doing. Same thing, your body doesn't know how to process that. So, yeah, I have taken on the mantle of allowing people to see that there's a consciousness to eating and how you can do it. And all of us can do it very simply by just learning to truly trust our gut.
Mm. How do you start? How do you start when you've been on this merry-go-round of tremendously toxic habits of eating?
Well, it's a very simple process, and it's also the willingness to take pause and be open
Yeah.
to some of these enlightened adventures. I started about 35 years ago knowing that food science was giving me an understanding of how food works in the body.
Hmm.
Then I was very blessed to work for a celebrity chef who was very spiritual. And then I started to see there's a consciousness to food. Just the mere sense of preparing food, not to argue over the food or be upset, and the energy goes into that vibrational feeling. If you pray over the food, you can enlighten it, enrich it. So I really have spent my
Hmm.
career combining food science and spirituality. And so it wasn't until 5 years ago that I created the Where Do We Start, which was the co-creation of the Food Healing Oracle deck, which is the platform I've created, allow people to see that there's messages in food and they have words to them and they have meaning and they have essence and there's some metaphoric and there's some real uh, kind of esoteric, and then there's some real life, and it's really that bridge in science. So the first thing is to start with, I would say, is open up your refrigerator and see what calls to you, what foods, what
Hmm.
colors, what textures. And also you can see the moods that you're in when you're choosing them. Because if you start tracking, even if you started with a food journal, you will be able to immediately start to see what food choices you're making with who you just spoke to or what just happened in your day. You know, when there's a celebration, the person gets a promotion or whatever, you have a great news, you celebrate with food that brings you joy. So it's going back to what lifts your spirit and what raises your vibration. That's what high vibrational wellness is all about.
You talk about, I don't know, reading cards, right, to determine, what someone could and should be eating, or how to break certain habits. Could you explain that to us? And I believe that you said you were maybe going to do a reading on me too, to just sort of illustrate how this
Yes.
works. Is that right?
Yes. So about 5 years ago, the first deck was born, if you will, the Food Healing Oracle deck. Similar to the tarot system, people know about tarot cards probably more than they do about Oracle, but many people know about Oracle cards too. And Oracle cards, just to break it down, attribute a picture and a word. And you look at the picture and you look at the word and you kind of surmise some sort of understanding there's a message for you. Well, the pictures in my deck, I'll just hold one up. Here we go. This is Cantaloupe for Integrity. This is from the second deck. So
Okay.
what is that saying? And I just pulled that randomly. So is there something about the word cantaloupe and the word integrity? Well, yes, there is. And it turns out in the first deck, there were 60 foods: blueberry for clarity, strawberries for love, alchemy for lemons. And I started to have some spiritual meditations on what those foods were saying and why. And they all started to make sense. For instance, let's just take an artichoke. Do you like artichokes, by the way?
I love them.
You
Yeah.
do? So I don't have that here because we're working with the second deck. But what I want to tell you is think about an artichoke for a moment. The
Okay.
artichoke is our forgiveness card, first and foremost. So I want you to picture what an artichoke looks like. It looks like a lotus flower if you started to look at it. It also can actually look like the crown chakra. But what do you see? Can you tell me about the artichoke? Like if you're just picturing an artichoke, tell me about it to me.
I don't know. The color is beautiful, different variations of green usually, and um, it can be bitey, right? I mean, if you sort of eat it at the wrong in the wrong part of the artichoke, right? It can be sort of, it's got these little like pointy things on. I don't know. Like, I'm not a good
Right.
one to describe an artichoke. I haven't thought of an artichoke in
I'm
forever.
helping you. So an artichoke in my world, and remember the word is forgiveness. An artichoke is all these leaves with sharp thorns,
Okay.
and they are protecting the heart, right? You get to the center of the heart of an artichoke. And when you think about the word forgiveness,
Hmm.
sometimes when we're upset about something and we're not willing to forgive, we're putting up a wall around our heart, perhaps because we're mad, we're sad, whatever it is. We're not quite willing to forgive. But when we start pulling back the layers and looking at how we can be more forgiving of ourselves or somebody else, then the heart can shine and come out into the world again. And so that there's some metaphors there, but it's also showing that yes, this word forgiveness is the word associated with artichoke. And on a physical level, let's just talk about it. When our bodies are sad or mad, we are more acidic. So we're more on the pH scale, way down in the twos. An artichoke is one of the most alkaline foods. It's 13.99. So we can actually, when we forgive and we can come back into a state of wellness, we're actually creating the wellness within our body as well. So there's like an emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual healing going on just by the mere sense that we can eat an artichoke in that regard.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
So, sort of. What are you saying? Like, eat artichokes every day, and you'll. I mean, what are you trying to say? I'm
No,
not
what
sure I
I'm saying
understand.
is like if you were going through something, like say you asked what a reading is, and you happen to pull the artichoke card, and
Oh,
I
okay.
would say to you, is there something we need, that is going on in your world right now that would require some forgiveness?
Hmm.
Well, I happen to just, like I said before, I pulled the integrity card. And so this was cantaloupe. And I'm not saying today you have to go eat a bunch of cantaloupe, but it's the card that came up in the conversation. And so for me, what comes to mind is the word integrity, is staying in your integrity and staying into what you know to be true for yourself. And this could be for anyone who's listening or watching this right now. Why out of 124 cards does the cantaloupe card come up and integrity? Now, the other thing I can tell you is if you look at the color orange, which is the cantaloupe, that's our sacral chakra. and our sacral chakra is all about creativity and staying in your integrity of what you find enlightening to create for yourself and not
Hmm.
waver. If someone's trying to turn you one way or the other, like stay in the integrity of who you are and what you believe in. If you have a creative endeavor or a path, that this is about you moving forward in that with integrity for yourself.
Hmm.
That's
Now,
actually what
is this part of my reading, or are you
you
just
know what
pulling it
it's
to illustrate? Like I'm just a
I
little
was
confused.
using it was a little bit of both because as I was starting when it was starting to come in, I was starting to like hone in on you a little bit.
What's that?
Well, what I was just sharing you about staying in your integrity and about creative endeavors and like holding into what is in your truth. That
Right.
card was kind of speaking to me for you.
Okay. So now are you reading? Are you going to do a reading with me,
Yeah,
or
well,
should I
yes,
ask you other questions? Because I'm not sure how this goes because I've never done it. So I'm going to be
well,
really
that's
honest.
okay. I was giving an example of what it's like to get a reading, but as I was starting to explain this for you in the audience, I realized that message was for you. But yes, we will continue on. So when someone gets a reading out of a card deck, there's what is called a spread. There's different configurations on how you lay it out. And that was a very simple one card spread. And you can ask these cards any questions. You can say, what do I need right now to stop the cravings in the middle of the night when I am already sleeping and tired, and yet I'm compelled? What is the energy around that? Let's just take that for a minute, okay? And
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the remaining, I'm gonna put that card back, and there's 60 cards. And let's just address that right now and see what shows up to share with you. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, and when you pick the card, also explain what it is because this is also an audio podcast. So for people listening on the on their as a podcast, I want them to know what you
Yeah,
picked. Okay.
that's perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the card and then I'm going to give you a little bit of a reading of what this card is. And then I'm going to read you the message that if you didn't have the author here and you had this deck at home and you had that question and it was you, this is the message that would come out of it. So the card I'm pulling randomly to answer that question is interestingly the intuition card. So a part of me is
Hmm.
wondering when you know it's bad, you know you don't want to do it, but you're still doing it. Intuitively, you know this is probably not best for me right now to do it. And so I want you to take that pause. Here I am the founder of the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy. I'm teaching you to like, and then you pull the intuition card. So this is a blue lotus. So blue lotus is a T. And interestingly, this card was very interesting to me because it had to be what food is going to represent intuition. For me, it had to be, it couldn't just be cantaloupe or cauliflower. It had to be something really special. Well, it turns out blue lotus tea is very beneficial for your pineal gland. This is where our spirituality comes out, our third eye. And so I said, well, that's the perfect card. So here's what I would say, and this is a reading for you. And I'll hold this up and I'll read it for both audiences. Intuitive wisdom from the upper realms has arrived. You are born with the birthright of being able to tap in, turn on, and tune into guidance from the higher realms. Have you been denying this gift you've been given? If so, this is a call to meditate and clear out any obstacles or belief systems, pay attention to that one, that hold you back from seeing and knowing clearly what it is for you and what is not. Blue Lotus tells you to use, develop, and activate your intuition as often as you can for guidance on this journey. After all, you have all the answers to the questions inside of you right now.
It's a great card that you picked. I was talking to my son about intuition over the weekend because I know we all have intuition, obviously, and some of us are, maybe can tap into it, or a little more, I don't like the word better, but easily, right, than others. And it's all there, and the answer's right, all there. So it's kind of interesting that you picked that one. And then associated it with, giving into cravings. So then what is that saying? I know I shouldn't give into a craving, but I do it anyway. And then how do you stop that? See, that's the thing. Like, how do you might know everything. You might know what you're doing, what you should be doing. And then still there's that little inner child who's like, too bad, I'm going for it anyway. Do you know what I mean? Which gets a lot of people in trouble.
You're right. And so when your intuition's trying to get your attention, the answer was listen to your intuition. It's almost like saying to myself, I'm choosing something. Am I doing it out of spite? Am I doing it to have more control over everything and everybody? Is there something I'm trying to prove, or am I in resistance? Am I mad about something? If you sat with your own intuition and asked a couple questions before you made the choice to go downstairs, I bet you would find it has nothing to do with being hungry. I bet it will have something to do in your intuition. You pulled that card, will tell you if there's something emotional, mental, physical, spiritual going on, because I'm not certain it's physical that you're absolutely hungry and you have to have it. There's something else that's causing that to happen. So those are the things, like when I'm doing a private session, I would go deeper into it. But for someone who has these cards, it is definitely food for thought, and it gets them really thinking of how to make changes. I tell people you'll never look at food the same way again. Maybe you should be drinking some Blue Lotus tea. And there are times where the foods in these cards will be the foods that your body is craving. Because let's face it, when you go into a grocery store or you go to a farmer's market, wherever you do your shopping, and you hone in on something, now you could say, God, I really need to have Brussels sprouts. I don't know why. I just need to have those. That's what we're having tonight. And you can actually look up what does Brussels sprouts mean and start to make a connection to what your body's trying to tell you. And actually, Brussels sprouts are the word connection in the cards. But what I find is that when people start to realize that they have the wisdom inside of them, their own intuitive compass, they start to make better choices instead of just bypass. Because at the end of the day, we have this body temple. You should be working in tandem. You should be working in harmony. It's talking to you, and now we're trying to teach you to talk back with it in collaboration for longevity, for the long haul of wellness. Because when we do that fast food, as you mentioned, we're like the sacred vessel. We're like abusing it, and it's just trying to keep us sustained, and we're just like unconscious, like we're asleep to our own selves when we are not fully awake and eating foods that are bioavailable and alive. Like we need to put live food in the body. Dead food in the body puts dead energy into the body. So that's what we need to do is go into our highest vibrational self. And that's why this latest book is in a series of teachings that I've been offering people about how you can look at food as a greater way for wellness on all your levels.
They say eat the way your grandparents or great grandparents ate, right? And you said what your mom said. If there were more than three ingredients in there, it wasn't on your table. We've gotten
Mhm.
away from that. I know that that's how I grew up as well. And my mom pretty much made everything from scratch. But, in my generation, I think a lot of us looked at it, was like, oh my God, it's taking so much time. I have a career. I don't have that time. Let me go to the grocery store and get something that's frozen. Well, we all know where that leads, right? And we've just been sort of polluting our bodies with that kind of poison. I really firmly believe it is the lifestyle of an American. I spend a good amount of time with my family who they're from Italy. They don't live like that. They don't eat like that. The country doesn't eat like that. They just don't. And they always seem busy too. So how do
We're
we
one
go
of the
back?
blue zones, right?
What's that?
Italy is one of the blue zones in the world, which is one of those five regions of the world where people are living past 100. They're the centenarians, and Italy is one of them. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. What are some of the other countries?
Greece, Costa Rica, Okinawa, Japan, that's the most notorious. In Okinawa, they're all living well past 100. And so there's been studies done on why is that? Well, their biggest commonality is the purple sweet potato. Purple sweet potatoes are loaded with nutrients in it. Italy, of course, the olive oils, But you know what? It's not just the food. They're working, they're moving their body, they're gardening, they're walking up hills, or going to church. They're doing. They're not sitting in front of a computer all day long. They are moving their body. They're riding their bicycles. They're eating well. They are in groups and they are in communities. Community is huge. Families stay together. They are not on burnout. They are on existing and appreciating life on all the levels. And the other fifth region is actually the Seventh Day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. The women in Loma Linda, it's been written that they live the longest than any other American.
I never heard of that one. That's
Yep.
incredible.
Yep.
That's kind of close to me. I'm going to go, find out why. What are they doing?
That
And what
that
have you
whole
read?
Loma Linda University, that whole area is based on their teachings. And I just got done.
Wow.
I do retreats all over the world where I take people and I meet with chefs and we eat according to the food. You can actually create a smoothie, which I did in a book, but I work with chefs in different regions of the world and they can actually spend a week with me meeting, having cooking classes, eating according to these teachings. But I just did a women's longevity retreat based on those teachings of how
Wow.
people are living longer. Blue zones is just one area, but these meditation, yoga, all the different things.
All the different things that I firmly believe our culture has gotten away from. I think it's the
Mhm.
only thing that can save us. I really do. I honestly do. It can save us and make us more productive human beings and get along with the people in our families better and in our communities. We've lost touch with that, and I believe with food we can connect again. We can really connect again. I mean, I'll look at my background. We would spend hours eating dinner at night. Um, I don't do that anymore. It's quick and it's fast and out the door we go. And I'm regret that, but I know that myself and so many others who've fallen into that trap, we can change that. We can change that.
I agree, and I pulled two cards just to address that. If you're okay with me pulling them and seeing what they said, is the message I asked these two cards is what can the listeners
Yeah.
and receive right now that they can do to make a change in the world? Us, me,
Mhm.
you, and everybody else.
Yeah.
So the first card I got was dreams,
Oh,
hibiscus.
okay.
Hibiscus is really amazing, by the way. I used to drink a lot of hibiscus tea down in Guatemala, all the South American. They know this is cleansing the blood. The hibiscus is terrific for you, even if it's just a little hibiscus tea, right? I would really recommend that, but also pay attention to your dreams. Are we moving away so far away from our dreams that we don't even realize it? We're so caught in the career and the 9 to 5 that what are we wanting really for our lives? Like take stock. I mean, one thing about the pandemic is that it allowed you to take stock and get really
Yeah.
clear on your dreams. But this is telling me like, and from a spiritual perspective, I'd look at this red hibiscus and I'd see root chakra, like reestablish your foundation of what is meaningful for you. Is it, do you need to have the food in the middle of the night, or is it, and this is just a general, I just used you as an example, but dream of the perfect physique, the perfect health. Imagine what it looks like, and then ask your intuition, what do I need to do to get there? It's actually easier than you think. The second card I got, and this is a very interesting fruit, not widely well known, but I always like to teach in my decks about exotic foods. Gack fruit. I know, it's the weirdest name, but the card I got and the word related to it is integration. So now you have two cards. You have dreams and you have integration. And what
Mm.
I'm hearing is to share is to start integrating your dreams, not dream and say one day. What do you need right now to make the change? Start integrating some of these new possibilities. And so people have integrated the new possibilities that when you pick up, let's just say, some of my teachings, you start to learn that food has a method to it and a message. Now, there used to be he passed on, but he was a well known well-known teacher, Dr. Emoto. And he would take water and look under a microscope. And he discovered that if you put the word love on your water and looked under the microscope, the water structure was like beautiful and snowflake and lovely and gorgeous. And if you put the word hate on your water, he'd look under the microscope and it was all distorted and nothing in parallel, nothing beautiful. It was completely ugly and horrible, if you will. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, gosh, doesn't food mostly contain water? Well, what if we put a word associated with a food? And that's just one of the teachings that how I kind of came into the science side and the spirituality. So when I look at these words, these have a frequency just like you would see that Dr. Emoto had with water. And
Very,
so,
very interesting. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
So knowing all this, right?
Yeah.
I like to talk about the inner child because a lot of times people have a stubborn little inner child and they're like, I'm going to do it anyway. How do you how do you speak to that little inner child so that that person says understands that it's not good for you, you know, what these habits you've created aren't healthy? Because I believe as a society that's where we've gotten, and that's why now everyone is injecting themselves to try and lose 20, 30, 40 pounds. I was at a black tie event last night. Everybody looked fabulous, thinner than they were a year ago, and
Yes.
that was the big O, right? That was the big
Yeah.
buzzword.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you should try it. I said, no, I'm not going to do that because I
Same.
can't even believe that we live in a society where we've gotten ourselves to this point, and instead of sort of getting back to basic and nature and healing ourselves, we're injecting ourselves with more stuff. I simply can't believe it. So, what do you say to the inner child who's still fighting? Because we've got to get healthier, people. We've got to, and
There's
we
no
have to get there.
question. Well, what I would say to that inner child, just the mere fact that you're mentioning it, is that the dialogue, go back to intuition, sitting with that child and listening to it, ask it what it needs. What does it need for me, the grown-up me? What is it that I could be doing better? And also, I would be asking the child, is this craving, is this habit, is this, whatever's going on for you, if it's incongruent with what you know to be true. Is this really something that is from this lifetime or other lifetimes? Because it's
Mm,
interesting that you mentioned it about grandparents. And one of the chapters, and I've referenced this a lot in interviews, and I'm just so proud of it. But one of the chapters in the high vibrational wellness is all about healing the generational wounds,
yeah.
because sometimes we bring stuff in and it's not from childhood, it's from other lifetimes. They can have, I remember somebody telling me once, well, you come from Russian stock back in the day, and so you do better with like rooted vegetables. And I always thought that there was something to that, and I agree with that. I also know that people can take on the energy of prior generations. I knew a situation once where there was alcoholism in the father. And so the mother would eat her food very, very fast because she just wanted to get through dinner because it was a terrible situation. Well, she ate quickly. She taught the kids to eat quickly because they all wanted to be done. And then the third generation eats quickly and has digestive issues and couldn't place where the digestive issues were coming till the session showed it was in the layers. It's fascinating when you start getting into the esoterics of food consumption.
Mm,
So it's number 12, breaking the ancestral cycle. And she uses tapping, EFT, which is the emotional freedom technique, to heal eating from generational wounds. And we have so many other very unique topics in this book.
you
But that
really
was
do.
just,
You
yeah, thank you.
I'm just going to go through honestly some of the titles because people, if this makes sense to you, pick up the book. it's fantastic. Some of the ones that, that I footnoted, making food fun. Let's make it fun. Okay. And then you've got, I know, chapter 5, mind body relaxation secrets. Chapter 6, inner peace after emotionally abusive relationships. Chapter 7, I know this is a big one for a lot of people, cravings. What is your body saying when you're craving something? Chapter 9, toxins in our foods. Culinary therapy, which I know you go deep into. Mindful mantras. I love that chapter that you talked about, breaking the ancestral cycle. I absolutely believe in that. We're not just a culmination of blood and cells that just sort of came out of nowhere. We're part of our ancestors. I
Yes.
absolutely fully believe in that. And, if we can sort of dive deep with our thoughts and the way we look at things, I know we can heal. We just have to give ourselves the time to do it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things I learned, I interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton. I really just think he's the greatest. And if you don't know who he is, you should look him up. But his study is epigenetics. And epigenetics is his realization is that our cells have a consciousness. They're just
Yes.
not moving around. So if we can start to talk to ourselves, harmonize with ourselves, tell ourselves, I love you, tell ourselves that I'm feeding you the highest vibrational food so you can harmonize with every cell. For me, I think that the more we can start communicating with our body, we can be ensuring more of an ability to have wellness. And again, it's not just what we're putting in, it's how we are treating our thoughts and mindfulness. And our body, we have one, and it's time to really take notice of what we're doing. And it's the foods that are the most bioavailable. It's the least amount of ingredients, the least amount of processing, and those are the foods that nature is saying, hey, we are nature. We are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. I know
Yeah.
people think that's crazy. They go to the
Mm-mm.
rivers and the oceans, but we are that. Our bones are the earth, and our air is our breath, and our fire is all the chi that makes all our systems run, and the water is our blood, and the water in our body, and spirit is our soul. So we are those. So we need to eat according to nature. That is who we are.
Mm. Would you tell our audience how they can reach out to you if they want to work with you or certain courses that you offer to people? Would you?
Yes. Oh, my honor. Center for Intuitive Food Therapy. I know that was long. I'll say it again. Center for Intuitive Food Therapy.com. We call it SIFT, CIFT. So you could also try siftofficial.com. And yes, we actually have a certification course for people who want to go deeper, and they want to become certified readers, understanding when they pull a card, what does it mean? So we have 2 decks and we have 2 certification courses. And then we have many different other courses and how food relates to your immune system, to your different endocrine and cardiovascular, all your systems. We really always combine spirit and science. And again, we also have retreats that we take people. We're just about to head back to Costa Rica. We were just in Greece and Turkey. We go global and we really incorporate that wellness. People, that is a part of high vibrational wellness is taking time for yourself.
What
So
are you going to be
getting
doing?
away.
What are you going to be doing in Costa Rica? That sounds very appealing.
Yes, this is my third time going back to a private retreat center in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, and we work with a chef down there who provides gourmet 3-course meals all day long. They have medicinal foods all on their land, and we walk through and we do cooking classes and we relax and we sort of eat, pray, love, and do readings and healings and really get back to connecting into self.
That's something I'm going to look into for your next trip. That sounds really wonderful. It's also an opportunity to sort of detox ourselves too, right?
Oh,
Because
yes.
we know you're not offering frozen food that needs to be microwaved. So it's a great way for people to just sort of balance out, to go
Yes.
somewhere as beautiful as Costa Rica and so peaceful. really is a
Yes.
wonderful place. And you just got back from Greece, another magnificent, magnificent
Yes.
place to do that
Yeah.
as well. I love the places you take us. And
Thank you.
in more ways than one, not just the trips you go on, but the places you take us here in our minds. So geez, I'm just so excited that you joined us for our program.
Thank
Um,
you so much. Appreciate it.
what's the best way people can reach out? Is it your Instagram, or how do you like people to reach out to you?
I would say our Facebook pages. Yeah, I'm more of a Facebook person. But we have the Food Healing Oracle deck. We have the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy website. We actually have our own Facebook page for the Nourish Your Soul retreats. We're also going to Nepal and India next year. And so,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, that's a big one.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's magnificent. I'm gonna look some of these up. So, geez, thank you so much, Lainie, for joining us
I
today.
appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
please pick up the book, everybody. High Vibrational Wellness. It's really a wealth of information from various people that you've handpicked. So I really
Yes,
appreciate the thought that went into this book. I enjoyed it very, very much. Um,
that's on
and I
Amazon and it's done very, very well around the globe on Amazon. Yeah.
It's magnificent. Yeah, I appreciate you sending that to me, by the way. So pick that up on Amazon, and please look up Lainie as well, Facebook, on her website, and reach out to her. And I'm just very grateful you're here, and you can find our interview on all video and audio platforms of Deborah Kobylt Live. Tell your friends too, because I'm pretty sure that we're not alone in this whole space. There's a lot of us, looking for a higher power out there to lead us to the right foods that we should be nourishing our body and soul with. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of us out there who need this. So share this with your friends. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Deborah Zara Kobylt, and we'll see you next time.